Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
There is going to be a major inquiry into how police investigate cybercrime in 2017. That's according to Yvette Cooper, who chairs the Home Affairs Select Committee, which looks at how the government is doing when it comes to crime and drugs. She's been speaking to the BBC after a Newsbeat investigation revealed claims that an increasing amount of illegal drugs are being delivered unknowingly in the post. Here's Jim Connolly's report.
Think drug dealer, and you probably think of a shady character. Not this guy, but as more and more people buy drugs online...
The drugs people are most likely to buy on the dark net are cannabis, MDMA, LSD, cocaine and novel drugs.
Your local postie is, without knowing, becoming a vital link in the drug dealing chain. For most people browsing the internet, they'll never leave what could be termed the surface web. But there's a much murkier part of the internet, a few clicks of the mouse away. Under the surface, there are millions and millions of files, full of financial data, photos and other material that isn't publicly accessible. Keep going and you arrive in the dark web. For a growing number of drug users, it's the easiest and most reliable place to get hold of supplies.
I bought marijuana, ecstasy, 2CB, 2CI, benzos, cocaine, there's a couple others, AM22, psychedelic stimulants, 25I.
The recent Global Drug Survey found that in the past year, 1 in 5 people who took part had used drugs bought online. Steve's one of them.
We're waiting for a package of an ounce of MDMA to be delivered. See the postman, drive down, we get very excited, and then she gives me the package, I sign for it, happy doodah. So yeah, we opened up this package. Inside it was an ounce of MDMA. Me and my friend at the time found it incredibly funny. She gave us the post and just had no idea. She handed it over us and said, "Thank you very much." And I looked at her and I said, "Thank you very much." And she walked off, completely unaware of what had just happened. She was a part of a drugs trade.
So just how easy is it to get hold of drugs in this way? If you do an investigation on the dark web, you need to see it firsthand. So I've come to meet Chris. He was introduced to me as the person you need to meet if you want to know what's going on this murky part of the internet.
Hello.
Hi there, nice to meet you, finally. Take a seat.
Before meeting Chris, I bought some Bitcoin, the currency used on the dark web.
If we go onto this section here, which says drugs, we click on it, and it looks like eBay for drugs. I mean, that is
absolutely.
It's a crass analogy, but that's what we've got here.
It is.
So you have to have a certain amount of understanding to be able to operate on here, buy drugs on here, and generally kind of like exist.
There is a barrier to entry. It's not mainstream yet, but
Do you think that's changing?
It is changing. I compare it to piracy. A lot of people won't download stuff, but they get their mates to do it, or get their mates to teach them how to do it, and then do it themselves.
You think of like the dark web markets, and think, oh, this is going to be a seedy and crazy place, and it's all really dodgy. This looks like a normal website. This looks like a normal purchasing website, terms and conditions. I mean, that's not what you expect to see with a drug dealer.
Well, offline certainly not, but online it's become the norm.
What's the likelihood I'm going to get them through? Or if I'm going to order 3 things today?
I would say 98% that you'll get all 3.
Really?
Yep.
Do you think that's the reason why this is a growing trend amongst drug users?
Absolutely. It gives you the user experience of eBay and Amazon and applies it to drugs and makes it safe. It's a booming market as a result.
To test the system, I ordered hash, ecstasy and synthetic cannabis.
So we're back in the office, and it's literally taken us a couple of hours to get back here and log back in, and we've already got 2 messages. So just wait. The one thing with the dark web is it is quite slow, so it takes quite a long time to load it through. So we've got one here. Yep, confirmation on 2 of our orders. The seller has sent your order. So we've got 2 of the 3 already en route, and that's about an hour and a half after we ordered them.
It looks so straightforward and normal. It's easy to forget this is illegal. And as the dark web becomes a more popular place to buy drugs, inevitably more and more illegal substances are being carried in the post. But is this something your average postie is even aware of?
And I wondered if you'd seen anything? No. No, okay, no worries. So I've spent a couple of hours just walking around this area trying to get postal workers to stop and have a chat with us. I wonder if you ever see anything getting posted out in that.
I haven't, many.
Many did, but didn't want to go on camera. I think they're quite worried about losing their jobs potentially if they speak out. But we have got some comments that they gave us, which I noted down here, and they're quite happy for me to read them out, but just not go on camera. So we've got one guy here's been working over there for 26 years, never seen a drugs dog in that time. Another guy, 14 years as a postman, similar time, never seen a drugs dog. Parcels get scanned. Yes, I admit that, but how am I meant to know what's in a parcel once it's in my bag? I just deliver them. And another guy here says, yep, we definitely suspect the post, and it's that weed issue again. We can smell the weed, but once it's in my mailbag, we just have to deliver it.
We saw a similar response when we asked the question on a forum used by postal workers. One said they'd handled a couple this year that had a suspicious odour. Another said a parcel was beginning to stink out the office, so it was taken to the police station. And one posted, every now and then we get a special delivery for one of the businesses, and that's full of weed, and it stinks out the lockers. Eventually, we did manage to find one postman who would talk to us, but only if he could remain anonymous.
Hi, yeah.
How are you doing?
He's come across drugs in his mailbag.
One parcel that has had drugs in it.
What was in there as far as you know?
Smell of cannabis.
So you smell it, and then what?
You tell the managers, and all they say is you need to deliver it. If you see the person it's being delivered to, just tell them to be more careful.
Really?
The Royal Mail told us it doesn't knowingly carry any illegal items in its network and says it works closely with the police and other authorities to prevent such activities from happening.
All right, we're going the right way, Matt?
A few days on since we put our orders in on the dark web, and it's time to see if they've turned up.
Right, is everyone ready?
We got them delivered to a PO box and asked Jimmy from the office to give us a lift down to pick them up.
All right, I'll see you in a sec. Hi there. Got my post box.
Can't hear him. So this is the post office collection point where Jim's had the drugs delivered. And the reason I've got headphones on while I'm at the wheel is we're just listening in while he's in the queue. Just had a couple of texts from Jim. He says it's taking ages, slightly paranoid, something's amiss. So I've asked him why. And he says, not sure, just the woman looked at a pile, then went off and she hasn't come back yet.
Cheers now. Thank you.
All right, he's coming. Gone ages.
Gone ages, right. We had 3 orders that we put in, and all, well, I'm assuming all 3 of these are the 3 orders.
So what is supposed to be in there?
There's supposed to be 1 ecstasy tablet, which is a blue Tesla pill. There's going to be a small amount of hash, cannabis, and there's also going to be some spice. Really, if that came through your mail or if you're a postman, you wouldn't know any different. I mean, that just looks like...
Does it feel, can you feel anything in there?
Yeah, there's definitely stuff in there, but it's clearly been very well wrapped up. It's hard, and it's got bubble wrap all around them, but actually, really, it could be anything in there. I mean, they're just anonymous looking packages.
So we got 3 packages, but we don't know what's in them.
Cheers to the lift. I'll see you in a bit.
Hey, mate.
So we're going to take them to a government-approved testing lab.
In here we've got 3 samples we've bought online, so we should open them all up, see if we've got what we actually ordered. Packet of sweets.
It is.
Among the sweets, there's something wrapped up.
Yeah, that one looks like the ecstasy tablet we ordered. It's the same brand and everything we thought it was. Yeah. It was Tesla, blue one. Yeah. That looks very much like it was on the picture on the dark web when we bought it. This, we believe, is a blue ecstasy tablet, but the only way to know properly is to test it.
So what we'll do is I'm going to hand this to Anka, and first she's just going to do some measurements with it, and then we'll take it into the lab and analyze it.
Grand.
A small bit of the pill is crushed up, dissolved, and run through a machine that compares it to known drug samples.
And what you're looking for here is, you know where these spikes normally are on the graph, and then you can compare that with your database, is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So I've got the retention time,
okay.
And then it says that your tablet contains MDMA, ecstasy, which is
what we thought it was.
Yeah, exactly.
Opening the other 2 packets, the hash has come in a foil wrap, disguised as tea, and the spice is just loose in an envelope, inside the outer jiffy bag.
These types of envelopes will be going through the post in the millions, and not necessarily with this type of stuff in it, you know, quite legitimate post in it. And if you look at this closely, you'd instantly see that it had been tampered with and there was something else in it. That, no effort whatsoever. This will, in theory, avoid smell to a degree. These got through because, as I said, there's millions of these that go through, and if the post office opened every package that came through it, we would get our post a month, 2 months, 3 months after somebody posted it to us, so they can't. But it's interesting because, to me, you might as well have made no effort to do what these people have done, because if someone was opening these and looking for contraband, they'd have spotted all of these very quickly.
Our 3 packages all arrived as described, but just how popular is this route becoming?
Hi there. Hi.
See it, you doing?
Hi, it's very good.
Dr. Adam Winstock runs the Global Drug Survey, where users go annually to record their drug use.
The drugs people are most likely to buy on the dark net are cannabis, MGMA, LSD, cocaine, and novel drugs. And in terms of the number of people buying, we've certainly seen a year-on-year increase over the last 3 years, from about 12% of people who reported either having bought drugs on the darknet themselves or having had drugs bought for them, to almost 18% last year. And the current Global Drug Survey, I suspect, is going to show a further increase. And we're seeing that trend pretty much globally.
So on Amazon you get that idea of people, basically, you buy this, you might like this. Does that happen a lot on the dark web?
Absolutely. About a third of people said they'd broaden their drug using repertoire. It's like, we noticed that you like LSD and magic mushrooms, perhaps you'd be interested in 2CB or DMT. I think there is absolutely that effect. But also people who are on the dark net are probably quite open to looking around on what else is on offer.
What does the Global Drug Survey tell us about habits across the world on the dark web?
So people's interest in the dark net often reflects sort of drug policies that we see within a country. I mean, countries like New Zealand, where it's very difficult to get illicit drugs into the country because of their fantastic biological walls, that sniffer dogs and searching and everything else, very few people use the dark net, I think because of very high levels of cooperation between the police and the postal services. So there are anomalies, but generally most people reckon it's safer buying drugs online, and that's where they score them from.
So what is New Zealand doing right? Back in the Newsbeat office, we've arranged a chat with Jamie Bamford. He's in charge of investigations and intelligence for New Zealand's customs.
Jamie, everyone keeps telling us New Zealand's leading the way at keeping dark web drugs off the street. What's your secret over there?
Well, that's obviously very nice to hear, but the way we've sort of approached this problem is we have taken an intelligence-led approach to it, so take quite a keen interest, obviously, in the dark net.
Do you think more than ever New Zealanders are buying their drugs online?
We've had an increase in sort of small seizures at our mail centre. Have tripled over a 2-year period. Can't put that down entirely to the darknet, but we think that's a significant contributor.
Is it just the usual stuff that you're doing over there, things like scanners and sniffer dogs?
Yeah, they're hugely effective in the mail centre setting. So they lead to a lot of success, but actually, you know, a lot of intelligence puts the dogs in the right place. And in fact, there's been a big push within New Zealand to sort of join up all of the agencies and have them working and collaborating together in order to get that success. But yeah, they're a key tool for us.
This part of London used to be home to lots of shops where you could buy legal highs or new psychoactive substances. The government say that its new law to tackle this has meant that the shops have all closed down. But we managed to get these drugs on the dark web, getting around these new rules. We asked the government to come on and speak to us about this, but they declined. They say they're spending £1.9 billion over the next 5 years on cyber security.
Well, you can see that full Newsbeat documentary, Drugs in the Post, on the BBC iPlayer. Anthony on Facebook says addicts are always going to find ways of getting drugs. They, like normal people, will go for the easiest and cheapest way to acquire what they want. An anonymous texter says obviously a worldwide failed war on drugs is to blame, hence why drug dealers operate on the street. Only logical solution for them not to be caught is going online to sell. We will be talking more about that. Well, let's talk now to Jamie Bartlett, who's from the Centre for the Analysis of Social Media at the think tank Demos and author of The Dark Net Inside the Digital Underworld. We're also joined by Dr. Adam Winstock, a consultant psychiatrist and founder of the Global Drugs Survey, which is the biggest drugs survey in the world. Thank you both very much for joining us. So, Jamie, you've been looking into what's been going on the dark web for some time. How much drug dealing is going on there? What sort of a proportion of drug dealing is now happening online?
Well, it's quite difficult to tell, of course, because it's quite a secretive place, but there are dozens of sites, like the ones we've just seen, that offer a sort of Amazon or eBay style service selling drugs from hundreds, maybe thousands of vendors. In terms of the actual amount, I think it's tens, maybe hundreds of millions of pounds a year. But that's also got to be put into context. I mean, the global drugs trade offline is, of course, far bigger than that. I think we're going to hear that from the Global Drugs Survey, we found in the UK something like 1 in 5 users have used drugs from the darknet, purchased from the darknet. Doesn't mean they've bought them themselves, of course, but I think that's going to grow because people are attracted to, frankly, what is for many users a better offer online than they can get offline.
Don't have to go into somewhere that feels dodgy.
Dodgy street corners. I mean, of course, it's still dangerous, but you're not out on the streets. And because it's a competitive marketplace, a lot of users report that it's better quality products because vendors are competing with each other for your custom, and so quality tends to go up and price tends to go down.
Adam Winstock, you are the founder of the Global Drug Survey, so put some more figures on this in terms of the scale of it and how quickly it's been growing.
I mean, we've been tracking this for the last 5 years and it has increased year on year. And I think one of the interesting things is those countries that have got some of the highest interest in buying drugs on the darknet are those with the most punitive drug regimes, so countries in Scandinavia such as Sweden and Norway. But in countries like Australia, America, the UK, countries that have already got thriving drug scenes, the attraction of a broader range of drugs delivered to your door with the possibility of better quality and less chance of interpersonal violence is going to make those marketplaces only increasingly popular in kind of coming years.
So is it drawing in people who previously might not have touched drugs at all, or is it changing the way people who would have done it anyway actually go about getting them?
It's a really good question. No, I think primarily it's bringing those people who are already involved in using illicit drugs. It may be pulling some people back into using drugs who perhaps have lost contact with street dealers. But one thing we're certainly seeing is a little bit like shopping on Amazon or eBay. About a third of users are increasing their drug using repertoire. We saw that you liked LSD and 2CB, perhaps you'd like DMT or, psilocybin. So there's certainly that possibility of people expanding their repertoire.
Jamie, I mean, obviously what's happening online, you're describing it as like an Amazon or an eBay. Hurdles have to be crossed to get into this part of the web, but as we've seen in our report, it's not that difficult to do. Why does it then not translate to the security services, actually the intelligence agencies, being able to actually crack down on it?
Yeah, well, it isn't as difficult as people imagine to get onto this part of the internet. But it is very difficult for the authorities to know precisely what people are doing when they're there. You have very powerful encryption that means people on there keep their IP address obscured or hidden, and the sites themselves are extremely difficult to remove entirely from the net. Now, that sounds almost impossible, but the way that modern encryption works, in fact, it's a relatively secure place. The difficulty is, I think, for the authorities, although they are trying much more now than they were 3 or 4 years ago to undermine these markets, to infiltrate these markets in a kind of old-fashioned policing sense, is that they don't really want to destroy the entire network, because the encryption on which the darknets depend is also incredibly valuable for whistleblowers and for journalists and for human rights activists around the world. So this darknet has an incredibly important social function as well. So it's kind of, unfortunately, it's always going to be, as has always been the case, used by people for criminal purposes as well as for good.
Adam, is much being done to actually crack down on the drug dealing online? Have there been many arrests of people dealing or people actually buying?
I think it's incredibly difficult for police to actually identify who's buying drugs online and also whether or not it's the best investment of their time. I think where we need to spend more time is thinking what the impact is of people being able to have easier access to better quality drugs online in terms of their health. And the current Global Drug Survey, which is up online now, is looking at exactly how darknet access is altering people's drug use patterns. It may not always be for harmful effects. In fact, you could see that some benefits could come out of it. But as a doctor, I worry that easier access to better quality drugs is going to lead some people's drug use developing greater problems.
Here, the Home Office says it's going to be spending £1.9 billion on cyber crime security over the next 5 years. How would that money be best spent? I read that you sort of would cite the example of what's happened in New Zealand as a way of potentially looking at these issues.
I mean, New Zealand benefits from having very secure borders, a relatively small population, where the amount of kind of postal traffic, is relatively little compared to the UK. So there's been the possibility of very good collaboration between customs, the police, and the postal services. Trying to replicate that in the UK with a population that's 10 times the size, I think it's going to be really difficult. I think it's a really good opportunity for the government to start thinking about other ways of reducing drug-related harm other than just trying to ban drugs or remove access. And the internet can actually be an incredibly useful way of educating people around the risks related to drugs, but also how to use them more safely. And I think that's something that we need to look at more carefully.
Jamie, I mean, in our report we see how the posties delivering some of these parcels sometimes kind of know what's in them because they can smell it, but actually it seems that really not much is being done to actually clamp down on it. Why aren't there sniffer dogs? Why isn't that?
It's just so difficult to do, because if you look at I think it's something like 1 billion pieces of mail are delivered every year by the Royal Mail. A tiny, tiny fraction of that is going to be illegal drugs. And so spot testing or randomised checks inevitably aren't going to pick up on everything. And I think as you saw, you can hear some pills in a bottle, but you've got no idea whether or not they're illegal or not. And the truth is, people that are selling these drugs are very, very good at hiding them in the mail. They're always obscured or hidden within junk mail, or as I think you saw inside Haribo packets and aerosol cans, which actually make it difficult for sniffer dogs, and indeed anyone else, to guess what they are. So even though, yes, the Postal Service is sometimes delivering drugs, it's a little unfair to criticise them for it because it's just so difficult for them to be able to know.
Thank you both. I just want to read out a few of your comments on this. Gavin tweeted, "A complete overhaul of the UK drugs laws is needed. Throwing millions at tackling the dark web is a finger in the dam." Tweet from Hannah, "Surely drugs need to be legalised and regulated. People will never stop using drugs. Let's make it safe and tax it." Tweet from Clear UK, "Prohibition is the problem." Tweet from Matt, "The only answer is to legalise and regulate drugs. Anything else is a fight that cannot be won."
I've been getting